Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 20 over-the-top villain deaths.
Did you ever ask why? Why we toppled all those dictators, undermined all those regimes?
For this list, we're looking at the goofiest and most ridiculous villain deaths in movies. As is to be expected, a spoiler alert is now in effect. Which film death do you find over the top? Let us know in the comments below. Number 20, Thanos, Avengers Endgame.
I know what it's like to lose. Feel so desperately that you're right. Yet to fail, nonetheless.
Well, we never thought we'd see this in a Marvel film, but hey, Endgame was full of surprises. In this rather surprising sequence, Thor blasts his way through the cabin and takes off Thanos' arm. Bruce then pushes Thanos to the ground, and Thor gets him with a quick swipe.
Thank you, daughter. Perhaps I treated you too harshly.
Rocket can hardly believe what he just saw, and neither can the viewers. It's a surprisingly dark, graphic, and violent scene for the MCU, and is really too much for children to handle.
What did you do? I went for the head.
But then again, they had to continue the darker tone following that depressing ending to Infinity War.
You should have gone for the head.
Number 19, August Walker, Mission Impossible Fallout. This is arguably the best movie in the Mission Impossible series, and August Walker makes for one of the best villains. It's all there. Henry Cavill, a glorious mustache, and even a confusing bit of arm reloading. Walker also goes out in the coolest, most outlandish way possible. While dangling off the side of a massive cliff, Ethan yanks on a rope, causing a metal hook to slam into Walker's face and drag him to the ground below. To make matters even better, his body bounces off the rocks and goes directly into an exploding helicopter. So yeah, we think he's dead. Number 18, General Zod, Man of Steel. Henry Cavill has seen his fair share of over-the-top deaths.
Krypton lives again. What happens to Earth?
The foundation has to be built on something. Even your father recognized that.
It's not Cavill doing the dying in Man of Steel. He's dishing it out. Superman gets Zod in a chokehold, but Zod begins shooting beams of heat from his eyes, threatening the lives of a nearby family.
If you love these people so much, you can mourn for them.
With no other choice, Supes gets crackin'. The whole thing is very dramatic and over the top, complete with moody piano music, faded sound effects, Superman yelling "Stop!" and a cliche "Never!" from Zod.
Never.
It also frustrated a lot of die-hard Superman fans who claim that the superhero would never kill anyone, let alone in this manner. For some, this was moodiness for the sake of moodiness. Number 17, Richmond Valentine, Kingsman, The Secret Service. This spy action film is nothing if not over the top. Luckily, it veers full tilt into its own ridiculousness, and never once takes itself seriously.
I'll have the Big Mac, please.
Great joy.
The goofiness lasts from beginning to end, with Samuel L. Jackson's Richmond Valentine experiencing a particularly hilarious death. Just as Valentine is activating the deadly signal, Eggsy snags one of Gazelle's prosthetic knife legs and hurls it like a javelin into Valentine. Then, more grossness. Now, how many villains can say they've barfed after meeting their end via a prosthetic knife leg? Number 16, Frank DAmico, Kick-Ass. This film is much like Kingsman. It's incredibly violent, it doesn't take itself seriously, and it contains some majorly bombastic action sequences.
Who are you? I'm kick-ass.
This is best represented with the death of antagonist Frank DAmico. Frank gains the upper hand against Hit Girl and goes to kill her. However, he's interrupted by Kick-Ass, who shoots him with a rocket launcher.
Hey, why don't you pick on someone your own size?
The rocket blows Frank out the window and sends him hurling through the air before exploding over the streets of New York. It's completely ridiculous, and Frank's prolonged scream aids the over-the-top visuals to create a truly hilarious demise. Number 15, Jong Un The Interview.
You know, Dave, sometimes I feel like a plastic bag.
Drifting through the wind.
Wanting to start again.
This Seth Rogen comedy received a lot of media attention, as North Korea essentially scared the United States from releasing it in theaters. They hacked Sony's servers and threatened attacks, as they were incensed with the movie's storyline about assassinating Kim Jong-un.
Take him out.
Like on the town?
Party?
No, take him out.
You want us to assassinate the leader of North Korea?
Yes.
And assassinate him they do, albeit in a very humorous and over-the-top fashion. A tank fires at the helicopter that Kim is riding in, and the movie utilizes both slow motion and a slowed-down acoustic cover of Katy Perry's Firework to add a faux dramatic effect. Kim is then in flames in slow motion, and the helicopter falls to the ground and explodes. Number 14, Senator Mccomb, Time Cop. Being a Jean-Claude Van Damme film, everyone knew Time Cop was going to be silly, and silly it was.
Read it. Wolverine, between the lines.
The story follows Van Damme's Max Walker, a DC Metro cop turned member of the Time Enforcement Commission, a secret body that polices the use of time travel. The antagonist is Senator Mccomb, a corrupt politician using time travel to fund his presidential campaign. The climax of the film sees Walker luring a 1994 Mccomb into sharing the same space with a 2004 Mccomb.
Usually I hate doing things more than once, but in this case I don't see any other option. I do.
As the same matter cannot occupy the same space, Walker kicks the two Mccombs together, who fuse into a writhing, fleshy mass that eventually melts into nothingness.
You two should be closer. Keep them away from me.
Same matter can occupy some space. I'm still kicking. I must be on Broadway.
Number 13, Alec Trevelyan, GoldenEye.
Did you ever ask why? Why we toppled all those dictators, undermined all those regimes? Only to come home. Well done, good job, but sorry, old boy. Everything you risked your life and limb for has changed.
James Bond villains have met a wide variety of demises, some of which are more over the top than others. One of the craziest Bond deaths belongs to Alec Trevelyan, aka 006. As 006 is played by Sean Bean, it was only natural that he be given a cinematic death for the ages.
For England, James?
No. For me.
Following a brief fight atop a satellite dish, Bond literally drops the dude, and he falls like 100 stories to the ground. Only, for some reason, he doesn't die. But no matter, the satellite then explodes in a massive fireball, and Trevelyan is crushed by the falling debris. Ouch. Number 12, Thunder, Big Trouble in Little China. This is undoubtedly one of John Carpenter's weirder movies. It involves ancient curses, a fantastic underworld, weather-based magic, and sorcerers, all of which can be found underneath San Francisco's Chinatown. It also contains one of the silliest death scenes in movie history. Jack kills Lo Pan, and after discovering his body, Thunder sorta just blows himself up. inflates himself like a balloon, and steam begins shooting out of his nose and ears. He then explodes in a flash of green light. It's interesting how, in the span of just 8 years, John Carpenter went from the dark and dreary Halloween to whatever the heck this is. Number 11, Stuntman Mike, Death Proof. 20 years after Big Trouble in Little China, Kurt Russell starred as Stuntman Mike in Quentin Tarantino's Death Proof. This is Tarantino's love letter to grindhouse films of the 70s, and Stuntman Mike is a deranged psycho.
Since you're going the other way, I'm afraid you're gonna have to start getting scared immediately.
He eventually comes across a group of badass chicks who fight back, and the results are suitably satisfying and over the top. The women manage to knock Mike's car off the road, and they pull the crying occupant from the wreckage. They then take turns punching. The dude takes dozens of vicious jabs before being knocked to the ground with a roundhouse kick to the kisser. He's then subjected to a particularly gruesome kick to finish him off. Number 10, Alfred, Hudson Hawk. One of Bruce Willis's lesser efforts, Hudson Hawk stars Willis as the titular safecracker, and Donald Burton as Alfred, the personal butler to the movie's main bad guys. We know, very original name.
So much for his cut. Forgive my dry British humor.
The climactic battle isn't between Hawk and the bad guys, but Hawk and the knife-wielding Alfred. The short fight ends in an especially intense fashion. Hawk uses Alfred's knives against him and ends the battle with a horrible one-liner that would even have Roger Moore's Bond cringing in embarrassment.
Hey, Alfred. You won't be attending that hat convention in July.
Hudson Hawk is quite a goofy movie, and it contains a suitably goofy climax. Number 9, Norman Stanfield, Leon the Professional. This action thriller is all kinds of messed up. The storyline itself is quite dark, as it sees a professional hitman training a 12-year-old girl named Matilda so she can avenge her deceased brother.
The rifle is the first weapon you learn how to use, because it lets you keep your distance from the client.
He and the rest of Matilda's family were killed by a strung-out DEA agent named Norman Stanfield, who is played by the always wonderful Gary Oldman. As he dies, Leon puts something in Stanfield's hand, saying that it's from Matilda. Stanfield finds a grenade pin, and after opening Leon's jacket, discovers a large number of grenades. He can only squeak out a resigned curse before dying in a massive fireball that spreads to the outside street. Talk about going out with a bang.
Shit.
Number 8, Captain Darrow, The Rock. Believe it or not, The Rock is actually one of Michael Bay's most grounded movies. But even a low-key Michael Bay film is filled with bombast and ridiculous scenarios. Case in point, the hilarious death of Tony Todd's Captain Darrow. Nicolas Cage utters one of the goofiest one-liners in movie history before launching a missile directly at his chest.
Do you like the Elton John song Rocket Man?
I don't like soft-ass shit.
Oh, you don't? Well, I only bring it up because, it's you. You're the Rocket Man.
The missile launches Darrow out the window, but the wicked blunt force trauma somehow doesn't kill him. Rather, Darrow is carried outside the building and falls, in a particular bit of bad luck. The scene has Michael Bay written all over it, and it is glorious. Number 7, Steve Hadley, The Cabin in the Woods. The final act of The Cabin in the Woods is totally bonkers, in the best way possible, of course. A large array of supernatural monsters are unleashed in a secret underground laboratory, resulting in many violent and brutal deaths.
Oh man, I'm sorry.
He had the conch in his hands.
In a couple more minutes, who knows what might have happened.
I am never gonna see a merman. Ever.
Dude, be thankful. Those things are terrifying.
One of the funniest belongs to Bradley Whitford's Steve Hadley. Hadley is launched through the air from an exploding grenade, which effectively puts him out of commission. His longtime wish then comes true, as he finally sees a merman in the flesh. Unfortunately, said merman proceeds to pounce on his face, and Steve dies at the hands of the monster he bet on. Well, at least he realizes the irony before going out.
Oh, come on.
Number 6. Howard Saint, The Punisher. In this adaptation of the beloved Marvel series, John Travolta plays Howard Saint, a mafia boss who takes revenge against Frank Castle for the death of his son Bobby.
Now, I understand your grief, but for your own safety, leave this to professionals.
Professionals? Yes. I'll do that.
This results in a vicious cycle of violence, and Frank's revenge against Howard. Frank bests Howard in a duel and attaches the barely conscious mob boss to the bumper of a car.
And now I've killed you.
He then sends the car into a lot filled with exploding cars. And yeah, it's only then that the car blows up. And we see that the explosions have formed the Punisher logo from above. That must have been very time-consuming. Number 5. Cyrus the Virus Grissom, Con Air.
But he's bettered himself inside, earned 2 degrees, including his Juris Doctor. He also killed 11 fellow inmates, incited 3 riots, and escaped twice. Likes to brag that he killed more men than cancer.
John Malkovich always makes for a fantastic villain, and he plays a great one in Simon West's Con Air. He is Cyrus Grissom, a criminal mastermind who's been given the nickname The Virus. His death is both wickedly entertaining and unashamedly ridiculous. Cyrus does battle with Nicolas Cage's Cameron Poe atop a speeding fire truck before being launched through a bridge and falling through some electrical wires and construction material. Somehow, Cyrus survives all this. But being gravely injured, he is unable to move when a giant rock crusher threatens his life. Cyrus comes to rest with his head directly underneath the heavy beam, and yeah. Number 4. Emile Antonovsky, Robocop. Hey, no one said Robocop was in good taste. The death of Clarence is particularly seriously graphic. But the most over-the-top death belongs to poor Emile. While attempting to hit Robocop with his truck, Emile drives into a vat of toxic liquid, turning him into a deformed monster. He unleashes some truly horrific groans before staggering into the path of Clarence's speeding car. The results are predictably messy and, shall we say, wet? The whole scene is pure nightmare fuel, and it led to Robocop's reputation for being one of the most violent films of the 80s. Number 3. Velos Kohagen, Total Recall. Arnold Schwarzenegger films certainly contain their fair share of outlandish deaths, but Total Recall contains the greatest of them all. Velos Kohagen is blown out onto the uninhabitable Martian surface by Quaid, and he proceeds to tumble down a massive rocky hill. He then suffers what can only be described as a disturbing death. We don't know whether Kohagen's iconic suffocation is too crazed or traumatizing, but either way, it's certainly memorable and very over the top. The gross visuals are truly something else, and Kohagen's screams of pain add to the scene's relentless horror. Space is endlessly fascinating, but it'll mess you up. Number 2. The Nazis, Raiders of the Lost Ark. The early 1980s were a different time for kids' movies. While not specifically made for children, Raiders of the Lost Ark proved very popular with kids and families of the time, despite containing one of the most violent scenes in movie history. The Ark is opened, and while Indiana Jones and Marion close their eyes, the Nazis aren't as smart.
Marion, don't look at it. Shut your eyes, Marion. Don't look at it no matter what happens.
The magical properties of the Ark attack the Nazis. Many Nazis are shot with beams of energy, Toad's face melts, and Belloc meets a grisly end. The whole sequence is unrelenting horror, complete with nightmarish music and a surprising amount of gore. Not surprisingly, the movie's PG rating was immediately criticized and brought into question. Before we unveil our number 1 pick, here are some honorable mentions. Ripley's Alien Baby, Alien Resurrection, the nastiest in the Alien franchise. Howard Payne. Speed. Gotta watch those subway lights. Beckett. Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End. A ton of slow motion and flying debris. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. Dieter von Kuntz, MacGruber.
Alive after all these years. Bring him in.
I don't have him, sir.
A parody of MacGyver and based on a popular Saturday Night Live sketch, MacGruber starred a slew of SNL veterans, including Will Forte, Maya Rudolph, and Kristen Wiig. It also contains what may very well be the most over-the-top death in movie history. MacGruber headbutts villain Kuntz, played by Val Kilmer, and pushes him through a structure and off a cliff. He then grabs a machine gun and shoots Kuntz a bunch of times on the way down, just for good measure. Not content with that, MacGruber keeps aiming at Kuntz, who had finally come to rest at the bottom of the cliff. The scene is intentionally silly, parodying over-the-top action movies. But man, they really went all out there. Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.